What's up, everyone, and welcome back to yet another predictions video. It is time to start the second split of regionals. I'm excited. We're gonna hop right into it. Once again, though, I do apologize for the poor lighting. I still have not gotten my ring light back yet from ordering a new one because my original one has broke, but I should be getting one in very soon. Anyways, let's go ahead and hop right into it, starting with the GenG series versus Power Rangers. I don't know exactly what team this is. I think this is Mech, Darklight, and Hexic, I want to say. I think that's the team, but anyways, this should be a clean sweep for GenG. GenG looked very good this past regional after the replacement of Reddles with Justin. I thought, I do think it's an upgrade. Whether or not, they specifically Justin for Reddles was the right move, that's up for interpretation, for a discussion. But I do think that Justin himself is an upgrade for the team, and GenG looked very good this past regional, so a good start. And then next we have Rebellion versus Strictly Business, and speaking of Reddles, here's his new team, Rebellion, who did not look good. Rebellion struggled mightily. And to be honest with that, I don't think they're going to be able to win this first match. Strictly Business, they did make a roster change. They swapped out Samas for, I believe, his Eris. And they looked pretty solid this past weekend in the qualifiers. So I think they should have a decent start to the split. Next, we have the major runner-ups Ultimates. My favorite team had a great major run, getting the top two before, of course, just running into the juggernaut that is KC. But they looked very good, and they're looking to hopefully take the crown as NA1. It starts with some Moss and Talk and Tricky, and I do think this should be a sweep. I don't think Tricky's going to be able to keep up in these level of lobbies. Next, we got SSG versus Evo. SSG made a roster move, replacing Frosty with Kofer, and then, of course, Evo is the same roster of Arju, Relating Wave, and Speed. And I think SSG is going to get a close win to start off the split, as they look to, have a good run and possibly make the major now with their new lineup. They, just barely came up short due to GenG's miracle run last split. We'll go down here in the lower. I do think Rebellion should have no issue taking down Power Rangers. They should, I'll give Power Rangers a game just to make them feel good, but I do not think they should struggle too much with that. And then Evo versus Samas versus Talk. I think this will be a little bit closer than people might expect. Evo definitely has some struggles in the qualifiers, but at the end of the day, I do think they're a better team than Samas, Talk, and Tricky, unfortunately, so they will get the win and move on. Next, we got GenG versus Strictly Business. I do think we'll see GenG win. Like I said, I was really impressed with them in the qualifier. I think Justin is looking like a good pickup so far, and this team is going to be a threat to possibly make the major. And I think, a good win over Strictly Business to secure a upper bracket top 6. Now we got Ultimates versus SSG, and I think Ultimates will get the win. I think Ultimates are going to continue to build on their performance at the major. SSG, still a new roster as much as and I just don't think they have the same peak with Kofer compared to Frosty. I think the 4 will be a little bit, not even a little bit, I think will be a lot higher, but I still not sure if they're going to be able to peak for peak match with how good the Ultimates look. So I think Ultimates should be able to get the win, but SSG will be able to take care of business against Rebellion and still secure a top 8. And then next, we got Strictly Business versus Evo, and this is a matchup of two, EU teams, I guess. I mean, now Strictly Business has Eris, so it's a little bit of NA mixed in, but mostly EU teams. And I think at the end, we're going to see Team Evo come out with the win. Very close one, but I think they're just a little bit better in Strictly Business at this point in time. Especially, what they showed last split, getting a top 4. That is how I feel about them. And then up to Ultimates versus GenG. I think Ultimates will get a Game 5 win. They did play at the major with Ultimates barely scraping by. And then, of course, in Regional 3, where GenG got the, the Grand Finals win, they needed to secure a major spot. but I think Ultimates are going to come out and get a good win. And then next we have SSG versus Evo, and I think, SSG is a better team than Evo and should not too many struggles with them, and I think they'll get the win and secure the top 8. Next, moving on to the other side, we got Complexity versus Deleted Gaming, and Deleted honestly didn't look all that great in the qualifiers. I believe they went 3-2, just squeaking by. They did get swept by Pirates on a boat, and what is this? I don't know how to pronounce this. But another team they also got swept by, and honestly, like I said, just really was not a very good performance by them in the Swiss. And I think Complexity, with their new addition of Frosty, is going to be looking to come out with some good performances and, contend for that major now and probably be a little bit better, because I do think Frosty is a major upgrade over Raise Bull. Let's just see. We'll have to see, though, how, it fits with their style and whatnot. And we got Pirates versus 9 Lives, and honestly, Pirates in a Boat have been looking really solid recently. So I'm going to give them a Game 5 win over 9 Lives. This is really unfortunate for 9 Lives because they're honestly not too far out of like a, world contending spot. If they make the major, they probably are going to make worlds as well. But, this is going to be a major setback. They did replace Kofor with Zanil, which is kind of an on-paper downgrade, but, kind of what it is. Kofor, I believe Kofor and Hawkser had some disagreements of how they wanted to play, and so that's why there was a roster move made. And we got Energy versus What's Up, and I believe What's Up is the roster of Expert, Chelsea, and Devo. This should be just a quick 3-0. Energy were looking phenomenal in the qualifiers. They looked back to their form, so I don't see them struggling too much with these lower level teams. And then we have the Boys versus Nah. The Boys is, I believe, Evo's new team. He's teaming with Percy and Aqua, and they looked really good in the qualifiers. And then Nah, Adam, Knight, Hazo, and so this should be pretty easy for the Boys. I was really impressed with how Evo's team did. Their only loss was to Complexity in the qualifiers. Outside of that, they looked pretty solid, beating both Power Rangers and 9 Lives. So good qualifier for them. And down here, this is a really tough last place elimination match, but I do think 9 Lives will get the win over Deleted. Deleted, unfortunate start for the split for them, but not, I just don't think they're better than 9 Lives. And then What's Up versus Nah. This is like the most Mickey matchup imaginable. I'm going to give it to What's Up. I think What's Up is a better roster than Nah. Next, we got Complexity versus Pirates, and this one I do think this is where Pirates, little run ends, and I think Complexity gets a good win to secure yet another top 6. They have made a top 6. They have gone through upper bracket every single regional so far this season. And next we get the Boys versus Energy, and I think Energy is going to get yet another big win over a pretty solid team as they continue their, hopefully their resurgence, because they had a kind of a, rough major. They did make a top 4, but they just never looked like the team they looked like last season. So this might be a good way to get back in that groove. Next we got Boys and 9 Lives. This is really tough. I like the Boys form a little bit better than 9 Lives in this past regional, but I think we're gonna see the experience of Hawkser and Chicago come out, as they will get the win and move on to a top 8. And in Paris versus What's Up, this should not be very close. I think What's Up will get smoked by Pirates. And then next we got Energy versus Complexity. I don't think Complexity can really compete with Energy at this point. We saw, their struggles at the major, and really with any team who was fairly competent, they just were not able to get over that kind of hump. And I understand, I do think, like I said, I think the Race Bull, replacing Race Bull with Frosty was a major upgrade, but I think we're going to see some, it's going to take some time to see it really come into, full effect. And Energy, their experience and just overall skill will come in and get them a good win. And then 9 Lives versus Pirates. I think 9 Lives just slightly edges out Pirates in this one. Should be a close series so far. And yeah, this is one of the placements at this point. And let's go ahead and move on into the bracket. First, we'll start out with the upper bracket, starting with Ultimates Complexity. I think Ultimates, they're looking like a new team recently. They really just have not been struggling with much. They've been able to, getting to the grand finals has not been too much of an issue. It's just once they get to that grand finals, they really have not been able to do too well. But I think so far, Complexity, I think they're a better team than them. Shouldn't have any issues. Next, we got Energy versus GenG. And they did play at the major with their old roster. And I think this one will be a little bit closer than, you would expect GenG to play Energy. But I think this new roster of GenG is looking really solid out the gate. And they should have a good matchup versus Energy. But like I said, Energy is just way too good at this point. I don't really see them faltering much, if at all, this regional. Next, we got Pirates versus SSG. This is technically the series that killed SSG's major chances. Had they won this series in Regional 3 over Pirates, they would have likely made the major. But what can you do? Unfortunately, not able to get that win. So they will enact their revenge in this one and make a top 6, eliminating Pirates at top 8. And we have 9 Lives versus Evo, and I think we're going to see this one go to distance, but 9 Lives is going to come out on top and work their way into a major spot once again. Next, we got Complexity versus SSG. I think we're going to see this new SSG roster really just, show out for this day and get a huge win over Complexity to secure a top 4, where they will face Energy. And then we got GenG versus 9 Lives, and I think this GenG roster has been looking really solid. And, I didn't predict them to make the major in my pre-split predictions, but at this point, I was very impressed with how they played against, in the qualifiers, so I think they'll, they might be able to run it back and make the major again with their roster move, but we'll have to see how the rest of the qualifiers go. But for this one, they will get into the top 4 territory. And then we have SSG versus Space Station. I think now the experience and just SSG will not be able to, they'll have to be peaking like no other to really be able to compete with Energy, and I don't think they're going to do that this day. In Ultimates GenG, I think we will see Ultimates get a good win in Game 7 over GenG to get their revenge for the Regional 3 Grand Finals. But unfortunately for Ultimates, they will still not be able to win their first regional of the season, as Energy once again win another regional and continue to take the crown as the best team in NA. So yeah, I know, really going out on a crazy, hot takes Energy Ultimates Grand Finals, but to be honest, these two teams are just the 2 best in NA, and I don't think there's really any, competition in that regard. So I think, but Energy, they just kind of have Ultimate's number, and I think they really just reign supreme when it comes to the current state of NA, and I don't see Ultimates really being able to take that away from them at the moment. So until I can see some signs of change, for now, I'm going to continue to predict Energy to win basically everything. But once again, if you guys enjoyed the video and you enjoyed the predictions, make sure to like and subscribe. I will be back with the watch parties once again starting this weekend. Gonna be a chaotic weekend with a lot of stuff going on in real life, but I will be, working on making sure to come out with the watch parties and whatnot. But if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.